If you want to get better at painting vibrant, colorful subjects like this or this, then today's watercolor exercise is for you. I'm going to show you my favorite practice method for getting better at painting crisp edges and planning your color segments to achieve clean borders, a skill that will elevate every piece you paint going forward. These foundational exercises are the backbone of everything else we paint. Every complex tutorial you've seen on this channel, every bird, every flower, every detailed composition comes back to the fundamentals we're practicing here. So grab your favorite brushes and watercolor pigments. I'll be testing a whole range and will list the names, sizes, and brands in the corner of the screen. But for today's exercise, just pick your favorites. And before we start, you will need to draw a simple grid of rectangles and another one with overlapping circles. As always, if you're following this tutorial on my Patreon, you can download and print the black and white outline and follow along with me in real time alongside the related tutorial featuring this same so-called puzzle method, a dragon fruit and dragonfly. This was our July composition. Thank you to all my patrons for supporting this channel. Let's get started. I'm gonna grab one of my larger brushes. This is size 8 synthetic squirrel from Escoda, and one of my favorite colors. This is PV19 quinacridone red from Core, also known as quinacridone rose and other brands. Technically pigment violet, but it reads as a red, so I often use it as sort of my go-to red when I'm not sure which color to use. But right now I'm not focused on the color as much as I'm focused on the edges. So I'm trying to test and see if I can get this perfect rectangle with straight lines. See how comfortable I am with this particular brush on this paper at this size. So as you're doing this first set of rectangles, see if you need to go a size down, if your brush is just too big and imprecise when it comes to the edges. But I'm gonna continue, and this time try and maybe go slightly darker, fill in my rectangular shape, and notice that at the bottom I didn't get a straight line, and this is why this is supposed to be a fun stress-free exercise, because these things will happen. And I think what happened at the bottom is I pressed my brush too much because it's just so big. When you press a round brush, it kind of pushes the color out. So that's something to keep in mind. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush and a much more precise brush. So this is real sable, so much better control over my pigment and water, because natural brushes release pigment a lot better. And this is a smaller brush, so I have a lot more control over my stroke. And I'm gonna fill it in. So try different brushes, see how you like the process, see what results you like best. Here, you may want to grab one of your flat brushes and see what happens. Maybe it's easier for you to create a flat wash with precise edges when you're using a flat brush. So this is another synthetic I have, my Escoda, and try different strokes. See if your rectangle is more accurate. I find that for really elongated lines, sometimes using a flat brush, just the edge of it is quite useful. I'm showing you on an angle so you can see exactly how the brush touches the paper, how much water I'm releasing, and I'm gonna leave it to dry. Let's move down. This time I'm gonna go down to probably my favorite sizes, because I typically paint on a very small scale. Back to Sable, but this is a different brand, a really old brush, but even at this size it loads quite a bit of pigment, so I'm able to cover the rectangle and notice how much smoother the wash is compared to the one we just did before, where I used a flat brush. I'm gonna continue with this small brush, but now I'm gonna maybe try even smaller, more intricate segments. If you've done a lot of tutorials with me, like this is kind of like the typical segment size I would be working with. And in the dragon fruit tutorial, the one that I created together with this exercise, because it's a really great way to test the puzzle method, that's roughly the size of segments we're working with. So that's why in that particular painting, I used, for the most part, this brush. And then let's try something different maybe. Let's pre-wet our segments first with clear water and then add our color. So this is more classic wet into wet method. What I find challenging about it is that when you start with clear water, you hardly see the boundaries of your working shape, which is why I very often get this question in my YouTube videos. People wonder why I don't pre-wet my segments. I usually start with slightly tinted water just to see the edges better. And if you don't enjoy like super precise, hyper realistic work, it may not be as important. If you like more loose style, then starting with clear water is definitely a lot more fun, because as you can see, once you add color, it kind of spreads and flows. It's entirely up to your style, how you want to approach it. I just like more precision, so that's why I typically start either with color right away or slightly tinted water. Now let's leave the red blocks to dry and switch to our overlapping circles. I'm going to start with the lightest color in this case, my yellow. This is Benzie yellow. Typically, whenever I paint multicolored subjects, if there is a yellow segment, I always start with that, because anything else that goes on top would be darker, because yellow has the lightest value. If you look at the color spectrum, it's the most light and transparent of all colors, so it's much easier to start with your golds and yellows and then follow with darker color next to it, and that way you will make sure your edges are a lot more crisp. So let's cover a couple of segments and just pick and choose the ones that are not touching. Once these yellow segments are dry, I'm going to be able to paint next to them with a different color that has a darker value, maybe green, maybe blue, maybe red, and get really close to the edge. It's going to be much easier to get crisp lines that way. And then, because this cluster of overlapping shapes is quite complex, we can maybe pick a couple of other segments and use a different color. I think I'm gonna go with green in this case, and very, very slowly cover one segment and then maybe find a couple more. I think that's it. I think everything else we have in this cluster is surrounded by something that we just painted, so we have to kind of leave this one to dry. Let's switch back to our rectangles, and I'm going to use the back of my hand to test, see if it's sufficiently dry. If they're still wet, you can run a hairdryer over them, but I think they're pretty much dry at this stage, and I'm going to use the same green now, complementary to red, using the same brush to start filling in the rectangles in between the red ones that we've painted in the first couple of minutes. So here, what you want to do is slow down and try to get as close to the edges as possible without going over the boundary. And this is a very useful exercise when you're first testing your brushes. You're going to find out a lot about how precise the tip is. Round sable and squirrel brushes typically tend to have very precise tips. Synthetics tend to fray a little bit more. So this is a very useful way of finding out exactly how good your brush is for detailed work. And here at the bottom, you see I kind of went over the boundary a little bit, maybe 0.5 millimeter, which is totally normal, but you can see that edge is a little bit darker because 2 layers of color overlap. So if you're painting something that has green and red segments, like maybe a flower and a leaf, and you create a darker edge this way, one thing to do is to come back once this green layer is dry and add a little bit more color around that edge, maybe blend it, make it look a little bit more natural. But I'm going to switch to the next rectangle for now and try to be a little bit more precise. So really, really slowing down around the edges and trying to get a more crisp edge at the bottom where I couldn't really do it the first time around. Another thing that's useful here, and that's something that I'm not doing because I'm trying to keep my page straight, but if you're doing this exercise on your own, by all means rotate your paper. So if it's easier for you to get some of the edges when you rotate the page 90 degrees, then that's again something to test. And then just for fun, if you feel like it, you can continue with your green, or you can try a different color. Try now a little bit of gradient in this segment. So I'm going to grab my phthalo turquoise. You can try any color, purple, blue, whatever works, and add a little bit at the bottom. So now you see we created like a little gradient from one color to another while maintaining crisp edges that are touching the red segments. And now I'm going to go down, switch to pure turquoise. Let's try smaller segments. And if you're finding that your brush is not really working out here at this size, you can try something smaller. I'm almost using my brush as a pencil here. So I draw the outline of this little segment and then I fill it in, which is very often how we paint shadows that have intricate shapes. Kind of want to build the outline and then fill it in really quickly with your pigment. Try to test different pressure in your stroke as you're building the outline of these little rectangles. So you'll notice that I kind of start with the tip of my brush and then press on it a little bit to release the pigment without creating a bloom. And then I lift the brush again. And then let's finish the last two segments. Here I'm going to switch to pure blue. You can continue with whatever color you started with, but this is also an opportunity to test different colors and how they look, especially next to red, because as you know, reds are quite tricky. They always appear darker when you switch to monochromatic view. So let's see if we can match the value here. I think this is a little bit too dark. If you switch to a black and white view, you'll definitely appreciate the difference in value. So how light or dark the color actually is. And I often do that when we paint different subjects in our tutorials. It really helps understand how dark your colors have to be when you switch your reference to a black and white view. Let me do another one on an angle. I'm going to show you. So here I am getting a little bit more comfortable now, almost perfectly clean edges here. And I definitely find that this brush is the best for this size. If I were to scale it up, I would have to go to something like size 3 or 4. Now, sizes are not always consistent across brands. Depending on the brush you're using, you can kind of find out by the end of this little grid which brush is the easiest for you to work with for each segment size. And now our circles are ready. The yellow and green should be completely dry. And I'm gonna start with my turquoise. Again, try any color you want. And here I'm gonna get really close to my yellow, but notice how much easier it is to get a crisp edge when you're working next to yellow. Yellows are so light that any color you put on top of it will basically mask it completely. So there's no tension. Even if you accidentally go over the edge by, 0.5 millimeter, you're not going to create like a dark strip there. So that's why I always start with yellow. They're so much easier to paint on top of. And once I'm done filling in this shape, I'm going to try the same thing on the right hand side. Now next to green. And here, if I accidentally go over the warm green on the left, then the edge is going to appear a little bit darker. So I'm going to be very, very careful and maybe even experiment with a different color. Let's try a blue as well. You don't have to, but I like to kind of make it a little bit more fun by introducing different colors because that's how we paint. Oftentimes we have variations in hue when we're painting different segments. So try a different color there, whichever one you want. A nice little gradient, and it's not gonna dry out looking perfect here because we're not painting on 100% cotton paper, so there might be some irregularities, but let's test our brush and see if we can create a perfect curve within this circular shape. Now let's try a smaller segment. Again, when I'm painting next to yellow, it's really easy to get a crisp edge without a darker line between two segments of color because yellows practically disappear underneath a layer of another color. And now I think I'm gonna switch to my red for the larger circle up on top and show you on an angle so you can better see exactly how the brush releases moisture. So this is very important for good synthetics if you're not into natural fibers. The reason why cheap synthetics are quite frustrating to work with is that they really don't give you a lot of control when it comes to water release. More sort of reputable brands like Winsor & Newton, Escoda, when they make their synthetics, the one thing that they pay attention to, among others, is how well the brush releases water and how much control you have when you hold your brush in terms of how that pigment gets released on paper, how much pigment you leave on paper, depending on how much pressure you apply. So it's easier to see on an angle, and I encourage you to test it out. Load your brush and then press it, see how much control you actually get and whether or not your brush creates a lot of so-called puddles or blooms, meaning when you press it, it kind of just releases that pigment directly onto paper and in a way that's maybe more excessive than what you planned for. And here I'm kind of getting a little wobbly because I'm trying to curve my hand in an unnatural way. So I'm kind of going over the edge of my green segment a little bit too much. This is where I would rotate my paper definitely because I'm right-handed and just it's hard to get some of these angles. So do rotate your sheet as much as you need to. You can see on the other side, it's much easier for me to get everything in one stroke. And now I'm sort of trying to finesse this wash. It's drying out fairly unevenly because again, this is 50% cotton paper, so not much I can do. However, sometimes it's fun when you have a wash that's sort of like drying out a little bit ugly, is to actually push it in that direction by creating blooms on purpose. And this is just such a wonderful watercolor technique that works best with granulating colors. So here I will drop some water on the surface and the water will push the particles of paint out, creating these, they're called blooms. And sometimes we create them by accident, but it's really fun to create them on purpose for some abstract texture, and have lots of tutorials on blooming technique. It's a very fun, very beginner-friendly way to create some really gorgeous watercolor textures, and they create a lot of visual interest. So like you may remember we did the rose, there's lots of like leaves and flower tutorials. You can kind of create this stunning texture without a lot of effort, and especially if you're working on paper that's not maybe too perfect, it's a great way to mask the inconsistencies in your wash and the way it's drying by kind of pushing that effect a little bit further with water. And I'm gonna finish with green again on the larger circle. Here maybe blending a little bit with clear water just so that the segment stays wet while I'm working around the yellow circle. And this is something that we often do with backgrounds, right? You may remember from all our tutorials where we have intricate backgrounds, we kind of pre-wet the segment, make one side a little bit more wet while we're working on the other so that we can come back when we have these intricate shapes that we need to cover completely, and I go all the way around and reconnect on the other side. I'm going to leave it to dry. You can try the same exercise with different colors, different brushes, create your own shapes, maybe try some more abstract wiggly shapes or other geometric arrangements. You can come back to this anytime to test your brushes, get used to maybe a new color palette. This is a great fun alternative to a more traditional swatching exercise. And let me know in comments below what you've discovered in the process. Don't forget to subscribe. Coming up next is the exercise designed to practice everyone's favorite wet on damp technique, perfect for painting flower petals, ocean waves, and of course beautiful fish, which is also our August tutorial on Patreon. Thank you for watching and painting with me. I will see you soon.